Hey everybody, what's going on? Clint here. I got a chance to go see Independence Day Resurgence a little early, and I use that term a little early very, very loosely. Here's the thing. I was and always will be an enormous fan of the original Independence Day. It was the perfect summer blockbuster as far as I'm concerned. And it came about at a time I was 14, 15, whatever it was when it came out, and I was just starting to get into movies, and I'm like, hey, I'm a movie guy, and this movie just like blew me away. And Bill Pullman's speech at the end of the movie is gonna get me every time no matter what. Like if I'm flipping through channels and I come up on that speech, I'm gonna watch it, I'm gonna start crying. That's just the way it works. And even walking out of the theater, I remember thinking, man, I can't wait for this sequel. Like I'd love to see what a ground war looks like with these aliens. I'd love to see more of the rad, dogfighting with the alien ships and all that stuff. I'd love to see more of all of it. I wanted more of the characters, more of the action, more of the spectacle, more of everything. So 20 years later, I get excited when they say they're making a sequel, finally. Of course, there have been red flags the whole way. No Will Smith was kind of a drag. None of it just felt right. The final red flag was the fact that my advanced screening was actually this morning at 11 o'clock. So literally, my advanced screening, I think I could have gone to see it in the theaters before my screening actually took place. And you guys on the East Coast absolutely did. So that's all backstory. On to the movie. Obviously this movie is about the aliens returning 20 years after they attacked the first time. We've used their technology to improve our defense systems, all that great stuff. We're up on the moon shooting lasers into space. It's great. The problem with this movie, one, it takes forever to get to the good stuff. And while it's getting to the good stuff, it doesn't have what the original had in that it wasn't building characters that I cared about. Like I cared about President Whitmore, I cared about Stephen Hiller, I cared about all these guys. The buildup in this movie is basically just, hey, here's a sort of Cliff Notes version of what we've been up to for the past 20 years. And it was just boring. By the time the alien ship gets here, this big size of the Atlantic Ocean alien ship, by the time it gets there and by the time they start fighting the aliens again, it really starts to pick up. But it's largely the same movie as the first movie, just set 30 years later. It's the same stuff. There's an action sequence in the same salt flats. It all plays out exactly the same way it played out in the original. It's just 30 years later, and there's some original people and there's some new people, and we're passing the torch to the new generation and all that good stuff. This movie doesn't have the heart that the original movie had. Like, it has all the spectacle, it amped up all the spectacle the way that sequels are supposed to amp up things, but it didn't amp up the heart, the charm, and the sort of goofiness that the original had. I mean, the original had a drunk crop duster kamikazeing the aliens, and that's how we beat them, right? Like that's goofy, that's silly, and it's fun, but it managed to be heartwarming all at the same time. And this movie, it really had none of that. Jeff Goldblum is trying really hard to be goofy. He's leaning really hard into his sort of fun Tim and Eric kind of persona. Liam Hemsworth, actually really good. He was totally fine. He was doing what he could to be charming and be fun. But I really wish they would have amped up some of that goofiness along with some of the spectacle, because it gets dragged down in this like self-serious tone that so many of our blockbusters have now. It's leaning so hard into the stakes that it forgets what kind of movie it is and forgets that we just want to have fun watching us beat these aliens. So if it would have been like just a little bit goofier, like if they would have had just a little bit more fun with what they're doing instead of constantly being like, they're coming back, it would have been a lot better. All in all, 75% of this movie is pretty boring. 25% of this movie is pretty fun, and it's going to remind you of the original. It's worth seeing on the big screen because, at one point the alien ship picks up Hong Kong and drops it on London. That's a fun sequence to watch. It's insane. If you're going expecting some of the same magic as the original back in '96, it's just not there. And I don't know if that's a product of the times and we're a little spoiled with all the big spectacle that we get with nearly every movie that comes out in the summer months, or it's just not that good of a movie. Yeah, that's the end of my thought. All right, guys, that's what I thought about Independence Day Resurgence. Let me know what you thought about it or think about it currently, because odds are you're able to be in the theater right now. Type in out a little comment in the section down below. Click like and subscribe. Stick around Cinefix for more movie stuff, and I'll see you next time. And then they dropped Shanghai on London. Or was it Hong Kong? That tall building that's upside down right there. Is that Hong Kong?
That looks like the birds Dubai.
It might have been Dubai. I don't know. They might have picked up both of them.